Hello, Stardust Alive cruisers and all you folks at home. I am Jason, your virtual cruise host, and welcome to another edition of All Access Pass from Home. Obviously, we all can't be together right now for various reasons, and the best thing we can do is all get together from our homes and bring a little levity into your home. Do our best to keep you engaged with some of your favorite stars. Today, I'm very excited to have with me the Box Tops. Well, two members of the Box Tops, I should say. I have Gary and I have Rick here. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Sure. Good fun. Gives us something to do today.
Amen, right?
Do it too.
Gives you a reason to put pants on, right, Rick?
That's right.
Yeah.
Wait, let me check. Okay. Yeah, they're on.
Gary, how are you down there? I see you got your pup in the video.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Bella.
Aww.
She likes being in videos.
She's like her daddy. I can see that. How long have you had Bella?
About a year.
Oh, that's great. She's a rescue, you said? Rescue?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And are you guys in, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm south of Franklin. I'm in Franklin, south of Nashville.
South of Nashville.
Yeah, and I'm in St. Augustine Beach, Florida. So
we were just kind of talking about this offline. It's kind of great that we have the ability, you know, when I'm chatting one-on-one with someone, you forget about it a little bit, but when I have more than one person, it's great to remember we can do this, right? We can all be in different houses, different parts of the world, and still jump online together and chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did it the other day with the band, because we hadn't seen each other for a few weeks. So we all got online, and you're talking about things we want to do, and a couple potential new songs, and just ideas, just throwing stuff around.
Very cool. And I know, let's get it out of the way right now, since only two of you are here. Everyone's feeling okay? No reason for anyone?
Yeah, everybody, we're great. The band is great. Everybody's good.
Yeah.
Our families are all good. Yeah.
Good. Gary, you've been there from the very, very beginning. So forgive me. I'm gonna tap into you first here. Give us a little bit of background. You don't have to go too deep, but a little bit of background on the Box Tops. I know you guys started as the DeVilles, correct? And then
Yeah. And then after we were just another local band in Memphis, and our manager was a DJ and a program director at Top 40 station, and he had managed a group called the Gentrys that did Keep on Dancing, and it was a regional hit. It wasn't, it was on the charts, not a smash hit or anything. Anyway, so he wanted to do the same thing with us in the same studio, and then Alex Chilton was the lead singer, and
such a unique sound too.
Oh yeah, he had a totally unique voice. The funny thing about that was, a lot of people don't know, Alex was only 16 at the time, and he was kind of he was very eclectic and a unique individual. Even as a teenager, it was like, he smoked cigarettes when he was 16 and stayed up late and partied, and he was a crazy guy. Anyway, not a typical Memphis conservative kid. Anyway, so he had been up late smoking cigarettes and whatever he was doing the night before the session, and his voice kept getting raspier and raspier and raspier with every take. And that's why he sounded like that. I mean, he had a great voice anyway. But that's
cool.
It's
a cool insight.
Especially, give me a ticket for it.
He was raspy on that.
Oh yeah, his voice was, just worn out. He was. Anyway, so then, but after the record, our producer wanted him to keep sounding like that anyway, so because everybody loved it. But after recording the letter, we had to change the name to the Box Tops because the DeVilles was already a copyrighted name or a trademark name. And then we knew the letter, and that was the only song we did that wasn't a cover song.
Yeah.
And we were going out and playing and doing that song and doing all the rest covers. We didn't have any other songs. And we were on the road, and we were in Virginia someplace, and our road manager got a call. No, he didn't get a call. He had to make a call because you couldn't get a call on the road. There were no cell phones. And so, but he called and found out that the letter had hit #1, and we're out there doing cover tunes.
Yeah.
And the letter was the only tune we did that was, not somebody else's record. And I also remember we were all teenagers, and we had only been playing our instruments for a few years, and we were playing with this band of really pro, guys that were much older and much better than us. And it was like we were kind of embarrassed to find out we had the #1 record in the country, and this band local band we were playing with was like twice as good as we were.
Well, that just goes to, Rick and I were chatting before you signed on, there's the right time for the right sound. And
yeah.
And I was actually referencing, Procol Harum when I was talking about, the Animals. There's a similar kind of earthy, heavy sound, and I know some of that gets attributed to the Blue-Eyed Soul aspect of what comes out of Memphis. What are your thoughts on why that song resonated so heavily then and still does? I mean, it still hits just as hard.
First of all, it has a positive message.
Yeah.
I'm going home and all that stuff, and my baby wrote me a letter, and it was huge with all the guys in Vietnam because it talked about going home and getting a letter and all that positive stuff. And to me, the writer, Wayne Carson, was a great songwriter. So we had a great song with a positive message. We had a great producer, Dan Penn. We had a great lead vocal, Alex Tilton. And it was a short song, so it got played a lot.
It was under 2 minutes, right?
Yeah. So the DJ could stick it in right at the end of the hour. And all those things together, I think, made it what it turned out to be, a monster hit,
And Rick, what's it like for you? You obviously weren't there in the very beginning, but you've been in music your entire life. It's not like, any of this music or the songs are lost on you. What's it like for you lining up just that song, not regardless of the guys, just that song in general?
It's great because my very first band in Allentown, Pennsylvania, band called The Limits. Of course, we covered the letter, and I just licensed our earliest recordings to a label in California, and a version of the letters on there. So it was every garage band was playing this song.
Yeah.
Probably all across the world. And I find not only with that song, but with a lot of songs I've played with a lot of the different artists I've worked with, there's something about just an undeniably great song that no matter how many times you play it, it still is fun to play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still exciting to play. It's still exciting to sing. And the letter is surely one of those,
Gary, what's it like that song came out in 66, 67? What's it like in 2020 to know when you guys hit those first chords and people lose their mind? That's gotta be a cool thing. I mean, 50 some odd years, 53 years of that type of response.
Yeah, it's really amazing, how people relate to it, and just playing songs from that era in general evoke this kind of emotion from people, and it's just great to be able to do that. I feel like when we play music for people, it's almost like it's a form of medicine for people in a way. Music is, and hearing songs that mean a lot to them, I think is like a healing kind of a thing.
I had a great chat with Felix Cavalieri of the Rascals. And Felix and I were doing a Q&A just like this. And I'm blessed to have known Felix for a few years now. He's done multiple cruises with us. And he was saying something very similar. You know, Felix was going in about, he's like, you know, now more than ever, he said, it's okay to turn off the news and to shut things down and just listen to music. He goes, you know, find your favorite record. He goes, I still listen to the Rascals music. He goes, I love it. It's upbeat. It's fun. And you know, I was chatting with Gary Puckett, and Gary Puckett was saying that his grandkids love their music. Like his grandkids ask him for the, you know, the Union Gap. They want Union Gap music, and great music really does. And Rick, to steal your word from a moment ago before we jumped online, you know, it transcends. You know, there's a transcendent quality to.
Yeah, it transcends the time, the genre. And, you know, Gary's probably feeling the same thing I am, that, you know, we're all home now. I mean, I'm playing guitar and singing more than I normally do. You know, I'm picking it up every day. I'm, you know, playing some old songs, writing some new stuff, but it's there. It is that healing thing. It is that really, it's that calming kind of thing.
Yeah.
You just kick back and say, okay, this is great. And, you know, now we have the opportunity. You can share it on Facebook or wherever.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Which is fantastic. Now, I've got to ask you, Gary, anyone who's seen the original, or maybe it's not the original, but anyone who has seen the video for The Letter, is John Evans on keyboard? Is that John Evans on keyboard? That is correct.
Well, John Evans played a little bit of everything, actually.
But he's on keyboard. He's an absolute character in that.
You're thinking about Rick Allen.
That was Rick Allen. Okay.
Yeah, like, because we were lip syncing on TV. You mean the one where he's like this?
He keeps making faces and going all over the place. And
yeah, he's playing the keyboard and he looks up and goes, you know, because we're obviously lip syncing, and we did it so many times, we just kind of got tired of lip syncing, and we kind of cut up and switch instruments and do stuff. Yeah, so
that's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, John Evans quit at the end of '67, and Rick Allen took his place. So Rick played all through 1968.
I know that when I was watching it, because, you know, it's a song, I've never actually seen the video, that video that you're talking about that you've done for TV. So, but I've heard the song a billion times. I grew up on it. My family, you know, my family's a big music family. Most of our watchers already know that. Anyway, I looked at it at the video before jumping on here, and I was dying laughing because you can see it on all of your faces too. All of you are just.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you've done that, you know, so many times, it did get kind of boring, because the only place we ever played live on TV, I think, was when we were on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Everyone else did it in the can, right? And you just dubbed over.
Yeah.
Were your instruments even plugged in? I know a lot of guys I was talking to said their instruments weren't even plugged in. Yeah.
No, there was nothing to plug into. There were no amplifiers or anything.
Just a dead set. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be weird. I don't know. That would be weird, I guess. That'd be a surreal moment.
You know, the weirdest thing about it, and the thing that I hated the most, and I think the other guys in the band did too, is when you did TV, you'd have to go into makeup, and they would put up this wet, cold pancake makeup on your face, and it was just the creepiest feeling. It was just cold and wet and like, yuck.
Rick, you're just smiling at all this. Well, yeah, it always make, you know, I hear these stories from so many of the artists, because I've been blessed to play with so many of these different guys, whether it was Peter Noon or Bo Diddley or Tommy Rowe, and it's just the way it was back then, and you had to sing that hit song over and over and over, and sometimes that was the only thing you'd go to the record hop, and that's all you'd play, and then you'd be off to another one, you know. And but no, I was thinking of something else when Gary talked about the makeup, because as he knows, my son's a special effects makeup artist.
Oh, very cool.
So, yeah, he's worked on Black Panther and Avengers and all that stuff. So I keep telling the guys that one day we're going to get my son, his name is Jonah, he's going to make us all look 20 years old again, which he could very easily do.
I want to do one like we're the apes from Planet of the Apes.
Oh, he could do that too, Gary. He could do that too.
But you have to be mimicking all your instruments still, though, and every now and then just look
That's
up.
right. Yeah, you're still going to lip sync. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary, if you don't mind, let's taking it back a little bit again. We were talking about the sound you guys had. You know, it was. There was a couple other people that had similar, but it was unique in that it wasn't widespread. There wasn't a lot of, you know, the Animals had kind of that, like we were talking about, those couple groups had a similar. How did you guys step into that sound? How did that fit for you? Did you stumble into it? Was it natural? How'd you get there?
Oh, I think we stumbled into everything, you know. I mean, we were just kids. I was the oldest guy in the band and I was 19. You know, everything was new to us. Recording was new to us. But our influences were all the same because the whole band grew up in Memphis, and that Memphis sound, we were influenced by all of the soul music that was happening there, you know, and the blues. So we were influenced by that a lot, where I don't know if people from other parts of the country were that influenced by, you know, by soul music and stuff. I know Felix was for sure, but, you know, but that's the kind of stuff we loved and we listened to it. So, I mean, that was a big influence and we all had that in common. And,
did you guys get pushback for it? I mean, the Blue-Eyed Soul movement in general obviously was we call it Blue-Eyed Soul for a reason. You know, was there pushback in moving towards that sound?
No, I don't remember any pushback. In fact, we got invited to a lot of black radio stations who thought they thought we were black guys too, and we weren't. And they were surprised when these little white teenagers showed up.
Yeah. Well, and funny enough, I was actually thinking about the other side. When I said pushback, I wasn't thinking necessarily from the African American community. I was actually thinking from the Caucasian community. Did the white community take to you just the same?
Really weird. The first tour we went on was like a Wilson Pickett tour with the Staple Singers and Carla Thomas. And the audience was 75% white.
Yeah.
So in the area of music, even the people, I think that were, you know, I might want to use the term rednecks, but
I understand.
But everybody liked soul music. They liked the black artists, Wilson Pickett and Aretha Franklin, and you know, Sam and Dave and Jackie Wilson, and everybody loved it, no matter what color they were.
And
I remember I spent a lot of years in Philadelphia. Yeah, I spent a lot of time at Philadelphia International Records, Gamble and Huff. And I remember, you know, Bill and Gary talking about the situation in Memphis where once you were in the studio, it didn't matter if you were black. There was no color. There was no color. And that's the same thing I noticed, you know, in Philly. I mean, you had black, you had white, but when it came down to making the music, it was just, what's the best way to get the music made? Yeah. And, you know, really, really, really an education that you couldn't get anywhere else. You know, it had to come through experience.
Sure. And I think there was such a diversity battle in the 50s, for lack of better terms, you know, when, you know, you talk to guys like Jerry Blavitt, you know, DJ from Philly, who's co-host of our Malt Shop Memories cruise. You know, he talks extensively about, and I'm going to use a horrible phrase, but breaking the black sound in Philadelphia, you know, where he wasn't going to not play you because of your color. If it was good music, it was good music. He didn't care. And that got him in some trouble in the early 50s, you know, and so a lot of that, again, I'm not saying it's been settled by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of that warfare had been fought, you know, with Chubby Checker and, you know, those guys, you know, kind of breaking ground, and, you know, Darlene Love and
right, for sure.
Yeah. As you continue to perform, if you look back on your career and you look back on all the experiences, you know, all the goods, the bads, the otherwise, do certain eras or certain periods stick out to you as really your heyday for the box tops?
Well, yeah, I mean, the late 60s, between 67 and 69, not only was that our heyday, but it was also the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Cream and Led Zeppelin. And, you know, it was a pretty amazing
ridiculous time. Yeah, it's a who's who of musical
Buffalo
history.
Field and the Byrds, and wow, just a lot of great music.
And the only reason I ask that, outside of the obvious, is I've had a couple of artists say that they actually enjoyed a little bit later because they could appreciate it when they were kids and they were in it and they were still in teenagers. They didn't quite know what they were involved in. They didn't recognize the how huge that music scene was, and, you know, who they were standing next to and who they were necessarily.
Yeah, well, you realize that as you get older, how unique that time was and how lucky, you know, we were and are to get to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's, you know, when we do our cruises, I find it very unique to see, and I was just saying this to another person, I find it unique to see that everyone is such fans of each other. And I mean artists, not just guests, but artists are fans of each other. We don't get that on every cruise. It's not necessarily true on every one of our charters.
Well,
I had fun, you know, getting to meet Chubby Checker and people like that, and hanging out with Jim McCarty, the drummer for the Yardbirds. And it was just really great because I was, you know, a big fan of theirs when I was a kid.
You were going to say, Rick?
Yeah, well, you know, it's that era was largely a singles era, singles rather than, you know, before album-oriented rock. And so, as I was mentioning earlier, every song was a masterpiece. I mean, it's hard to conceive that week after week, another incredible example of songwriting and production and singing came out. But it did for years, and it just kept coming. So when we see when we run into the acts or play with the acts, or Gary's worked with Sam Moore and Billy Preston and all those guys, and I've worked with a lot. When you play these songs, you know, you can't help but become a fan.
Sure.
You know, and I think that appreciation then comes across in the way you deliver the songs. You're not just doing a job. You want to really do justice to the, and if I may credit Gary and also Bill, who's not here with us, Bill Cunningham, who's one of the other founding members. I mean, I have never, in my 50 years of doing this or so, I have never been with a group of guys that takes such meticulous attention to deconstructing and reconstructing the songs to make them authentic. And I say that with, you know, a lot of admiration, and because, you know, we've all seen acts who just kind of, you know, play their songs.
Yeah.
But when you really want to go and make them exactly right, and there's something special that happens. Sometimes you don't think the audience picks up on it, but they do.
Let me tell you,
they are smart. You can't fake it with them.
And we see it a lot. You know, we do 8 different genres, 8 different types of charter cruises, and each one is, and I'm going to use it again, is nostalgia music. You know, it's 50s, it's 60s, it's, you know, it's earlier era music. But I tell you what, there really are 2 types of folks out there that do the cruises in our experience. There's those that want the artist, and even if the artist doesn't sound like they used to, it's still that artist doing it, and they want that. And then there's the other half, and the other half want it to sound exactly like they remember it, and they would rather have a few new members of a band or a new lead or whatever, you know, but they want it to sound the same. But most people fall into one or the other, and they can respect each other and they get along well. They don't, you know, it's not like they're 2 different people, but those tend to be the 2 types of folks on these charters.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the former of wanting all original people is getting smaller because we're losing people all the time.
Sure.
So it's almost like a responsibility, to do it justice, to play it, the way it, as best as it can be played.
Yeah, we try to do everything exactly like the record. Of course, Alex was our lead singer, and he passed away in 2010.
Yeah.
And we didn't play at all for 6 years. And then Bill and I, the bass player, we decided we were going to, give it a try and go out and, we got people asking us to go out and play again. And we thought, well, let's give it a try, And I was really worried about people not liking it because Alex wasn't there, But it turns out that people did like it, and we try to make it sound as much like the record as we can. And, so we learned that people really still like the songs. And I think you should try to do them like the record, because that's what they want to hear. But
and it's the reason why we use live horns.
Yeah.
We don't do the synthesizers, which would save us money and stuff. But there's something about, if you're going to do the Memphis thing or a Philly thing or something, there's no substitute for a live horn section. And it's also visual. It adds visual to it. It just makes it into a whole, self-contained package.
Yeah, and in that respect, having the live horns, we didn't tour with live horns in the 60s, but they were on all the records. So in that respect, we sound more like the records than we ever did before.
Yeah, we used it on the cruise last year. We used the two guys from the Ides of March.
Yeah.
And they were in seventh heaven. We were in seventh heaven. They were great. And it's sometimes, I'm a step removed because I handle all the business besides, I manage it besides playing. But sometimes I'll be playing and I can just kind of step away from myself and just listen to it all.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great to listen to. It's almost like being in the audience if I'm listening to Peter Noon or Chuck Negron. Except now I'm playing it. I'm also the fan of what I'm playing. So it's really it's real enjoyable.
It's really interesting because I can tell you this right now, and we've never heard it about you guys, but I can tell you this right now, that if we have an artist come on that plays an updated version of a song, which does happen, where they'll take an all-time classic that was a monster hit for them, and they'll go, oh, well, let's add some of this and do a little of this to make it younger or hipper or what. People do not want, not even a little bit. They're like, no.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, I love this song in the 60s or the 70s or 50s or whatever it was. And that's how I want to hear it. I want to hear it the same way it was in the 50s, 60s or 70s or et cetera. They're very particular to that. They don't like they don't like changing.
And there's a reason. I mean, they were perfect, I mean, the guys know one of my best friends in the world is Tommy Rowe. We're like family. And I happen to think that Dizzy is probably the most perfectly crafted pop song. And every time I played with him, he'd look at me like he was saying, would you wipe that shit-eating grin off your face? Because it was so much fun to play, And that's the way it feels with these guys playing these songs with authenticity,
Well, Gary, you were saying that you guys in the beginning, you were playing all tribute songs basically, and then the letter. What were you playing? Ooh, I gotta let you in.
Oh,
you're in.
Yeah, I'm switching over to my computer here.
No worries, I got you. We got you twice.
Oh, he's twice there, twice the man.
Okay, I can turn my phone off now, I guess.
Yep, you can kill your phone. Two Garys right there. Hey, there you are. Angle your camera up a little bit for us.
There you go.
There we are, you handsome devil. Can you hear us, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I was saying in the beginning, you were mentioning that you guys had the letter, and then you were playing a bunch of tribute songs. Basically, what was your set list? What were you guys playing?
Well, we would do like the other Memphis songs, like from Stax, like we would do Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett songs, Sam and Dave songs. We did Love and Spoonful, you know, we were doing songs like Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.
Yeah.
You know, we were just doing what was on the radio in, you know, like the songs that were on the radio in like 1965 and 66. You know, we did a lot of those, and it was pretty, you know, there's a pretty big range there between what we were doing. You know, Lovin' Spoonful and Bobby Blue Bland is a pretty big range, and so we were doing.
It's interesting the diversity of music in the 60s, right? You look at the early 60s versus the later 60s, and then there's kind of that middle gap. Those are almost all different eras of music in a lot of ways. You know,
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Well, yeah, a lot of stuff was going on, and the funny thing about music then was you would have a Frank Sinatra song and a Johnny Cash song right next to a Wilson Pickett song on the radio, and the same station played all of it.
Yeah,
that's why these fans are so knowledgeable. I mean, you can't put anything past them, because we all came up, and Gary hit it right on the head. You know, the top 40 playlist on AM radio back then covered Hendrix to the Monkees to Frank Sinatra to Dean Martin, you know. And so we all got this incredibly wide scope and a wide appreciation. And I think it made us all really appreciate a great song. You know, sometimes more than the artist even. It's a great song. Sometimes you don't remember, you know, we've all come across this. We don't remember who did it.
Yeah.
But as soon as the song comes on, oh, we know that song.
Yeah.
You know. So, and that's the way it was. That top 40 was just song after song of greatness.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it was there were no videos back then. So a lot of times people didn't have any idea what the artist looked like, and that's why nobody knew we were a bunch of white teenagers at first.
Just a group of white kids.
Yeah.
That you had to have some funny moments, like you said to yourself, when like you were saying earlier, when you walk into a recording studio or walk in somewhere, people would go, "What? No, we're looking for the box tops." Yeah, we're the box tops. No,
Yeah,
the other box tops.
No. Yeah, it was funny. It happened pretty often.
I can imagine. When you're teenagers and your song goes number one, stays number one, it's never an overnight success. And I don't mean to infer that you guys just became successful overnight. You'd obviously put in some time to get there, but you said yourself, you've just been playing your instruments for a few years, and now all of a sudden you have this monster hit. Was it crazy for you mentally to transition?
Yeah, it was completely like, it was crazy. It was culture shock. It was like the Twilight Zone. Like, how did we get here? You know, because all of a sudden you're playing on the same stage with the people that you were listening to the radio and just idolizing, you know, and all of a sudden you're on the same stage with them. And it's amazing. And also Memphis was a very conservative, still is, but was even more so, was like this conservative Southern town. And when we started traveling and going to California in 67, holy smoke, it was like being on a different planet.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
A whole new world opens up to you boys.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember any of those earlier times walking on stage and looking at an artist that you were following or that followed you and just not being able to even comprehend? I mean, were there artists that you played with that you remember that about?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them. Like, well, when we meeting the legendary guys, you know, like Chuck Berry, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, you know, meeting people like that, Jerry Lee Lewis, that was pretty amazing. And then, of course, when we started out in 67, in the fall of 67, September and October, that's when the letter really hit the #1 spot. So like between August of 67 and October, you know, we were touring, but really, it really got busy when the letter got to #1. But one of the first gigs we did was the Fort Worth Pop Festival, and we were the headliners were the Doors, and Light My Fire was the huge hit of the summer. Like June and July, Light My Fire was the #1 song. And so we got to meet the Doors when we were in Fort Worth, and that was a huge deal. And Ray Manzarek, their keyboard player, actually called Bill Cunningham in his hotel room at the Holiday Inn and said how much he liked our record, The Letter.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, playing with the Beach Boys and touring with them and getting to know them was a huge thing. And the Beach Boys, like, were, you know, some of our musical idols, and getting to know them and tour with them and meeting Jimi Hendrix and stuff. I mean, it was amazing.
That's, I can only imagine. Rick, do you remember the first time, maybe not the first time, but do you remember when the letter, when you started recognizing it for the first time as
Yeah, very much so. Because that same time, that Summer of Love thing, you know, 67, we were playing, you know, I had my band playing in Pennsylvania, and we were doing, and it didn't sound like anything else we ever heard. You know, it wasn't a Beatles song. It didn't have those pretty Beatle harmonies.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't, you know, it didn't sound like the Stones. It, you know, it sounded very, very unique. And I remember it also because it dovetailed with another song that blew my mind, which was Whiter Shade of Pale.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, whoa, there's something and speaking of something happening here, then you had Buffalo Springfield. So it's like, you know, just when you thought you pinpointed something else comes along, totally different, totally new. You know, it's like this was the period when the molds were being made.
Sure.
You know, once it's made, you can reproduce it.
Yeah.
You know, you could, okay, let's write a song that kind of sounds like this song. You have a template, but there was nothing, a minute and 48 seconds or whatever of this short little crazy song that, you know, The Letter, and then this Hammond organ sound of Whiter Shade of Pale that no one had ever heard an organ sound like that, really. Yeah. And so, yeah, I remember those times very, very clearly.
And I remember the first time I heard Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. We were touring with the Box Tops, and I was in the front seat of our leased station wagon with Cleve, who was our road manager. And Purple Haze came on the radio, and we stopped the car and pulled over and went, "Oh my God, what was that?" You know, nobody ever heard anything like that before.
I mean, I think you said it really well a second ago, Rick, you know, that once the molds are made, you have something to follow, but creating those original molds, you know,
and how lucky and how incredibly lucky, whether you were the star of the artist, whether you were in a garage band, whether you were just a music fan, we were all part of this together. Yeah. And that's very evident on the cruise. There's no separation between the fans and the artists. I mean, you know, we love them, they love us, and, you know, we want to interact, but it's not because you have to interact, it's because we're all coming from the same place. Yeah. We all have the same experience.
Oh yeah, meeting all the other artists on the cruise, the ones that, you know, we met a lot of them back in the 60s, but, you know, the ones that we didn't meet, we're getting to meet them on these cruises, and it's great fun. In fact, I want to do a cruise every 6 months. Can you fix that?
Yeah, I'm on it. Don't worry about it, Gary. Well, I mean, give us a minute to get through all this mess, but yeah, we'll set it up for you. It really is interesting, you know, and our executive producer is Alan Rubens, who I think both of you know, and Alan talks about it all the time, why certain cruises are more about the music and some are more about the experience. Flower Power is a unique mixture of both, because it is about the music, but it's also the 60s. It's also everyone there lived through something together. Everyone there experienced something together. Everyone there changed the world in some way, shape, or form together. And there's power in that. And there's unity in that. Whether you were an artist star or your everyday person, down the street, there's some power in that.
It's really true, because, we all, lost people who went to Vietnam. Most of us went through some kind of drug experience. You had Woodstock. You had the civil rights thing, and of course, nowhere was more of a hotbed than Memphis. Yeah. But we were all going through it together, not necessarily at the same time, because the window's only so big. But everybody was going through that window, and then some groups went, a little to the left or right, San Francisco hippie, or California flower power or something, or Memphis soul or whatever. But there's so much in common that it's like you don't really have to explain much.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a knowing look. I'm sure there's a knowing look that's just
there's a knowing look. You start the riff and everybody knows where you're going. It's pretty amazing. It really is. I don't think it'll ever be duplicated.
It'd be tough to, that's for sure. Allow me to jump forward to current times. What are you guys up to outside of the obvious at this exact moment? What are the box tops, or you individually? What are you guys doing these days? And I don't just mean during quarantine.
Well, obviously we have no gigs for a few months. We're not doing that. But, we're in touch with each other all the time, and we're talking about, we're making plans and trying to work on things all the time. Personally, I've made my living solely from the music business since 1967. So I do a lot of teaching. I teach guitar lessons online and, on Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or anything. So I'm trying to ramp that up a little bit now, because really it's my main source of income for the next few months. Sure. And I love doing it anyway. I've always done it, but I haven't done it on a big scale.
Well, a lot of your fans are going to watch this. If there are folks that are learning to or are playing guitar and want to reach out for some lessons, how do they find you? How do they do that, Gary?
Well, I've got a website, garytalley.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I have a Gary Talley page, and then I have a Gary Talley music page. Okay. That you can like, and of course, you could PM me on Facebook, and I'll even give out my email. I don't mind doing that. It's gwtalley@gmail.com. Okay. And so people can get a hold of me if they want to try guitar lessons.
Great. So that's Gary Talley, GaryTalley.com. And I'm looking at it right now, and I see right there you have some options. So that's wonderful. Anybody who'd like a guitar lesson with a legend, you can do so. And Rick, I know you're staying busy as well. What's going on with you?
Yeah, well, well, other than the headaches of renegotiating and going through contracts that have been
trust me, I know. Yes,
I mean, the manager is. Don't forget, we're just somebody that people can blame. That's all we are.
Rick's the guy that does all the work. We just get up.
But I'm also, as you guys know, I'm a professional potter, ceramic artist. So I've got my second bedroom is now a pottery studio. So I'm making pottery every day.
I was going to say, you should be putting out a lot of work right now.
I'm making a lot of stuff, and people know from Facebook. I put it up on Facebook, and a lot of Flower Power people have bought it. And then, of course, and then you all know that I did the memoir High in the Mid 60s.
Yes.
And a lot of Flower Power cruisers have bought that too. It's kind of a look from the sideman's kind of view, because I never had the experience that Gary had of being the star at the time. Yeah. But having forged a career, for 50 plus years in music, I think there's a lot that people, can learn from that. But we're keeping busy, planning the shows for later in the summer, and always trying to, like I said, trying to, you know, find maybe younger artists to record with.
Well, you were mentioning offline that you had an interesting about the letter. You had an interesting story about the letter in terms of a younger artist potentially doing some recording. I don't know if you want to share names. You don't have to, but
yeah, well, yeah, sure. A great young artist. She's an old soul, obviously. Her name is Hallie Reinhardt, and she does everything from 40s and 50s torch stuff to contemporary. But she already recorded the letter in a really nice version. I reached out to her people and said, man, it'd be really cool to do a version of it with her featuring the box tops. So we'd be involved with it. And, you know, there was interest. Who knows, you know, when things get back up and running, you know, we'll see what may or may not happen. And then international is something we're always looking at, to do more work overseas as things come back, you know, back online and stuff. So we're all.
Which does beg the question, forgive me for cutting you off, which does beg the question, how's everyone feeling? You guys are both families, I know I asked about the other band members, but you guys and your families and Bella?
Yeah, well, you know, I live alone. I've got a girlfriend, but I live alone with my dog. Well, so that's not alone, but Bella and I live here. And then my mom is in Memphis, and my mom is a great singer. And on my YouTube channel, you can hear my mom singing. She's 93 years old. And
how cool is that?
On Gary Talley YouTube channel, I've got like 20 songs of myself and Belinda and my mom singing all these old songs, gospel songs, and One Day at a Time. Remember that song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone viral. Like 6 million people have viewed it. and my mom is like, it blows her mind because, you know, all this technology and social media and the internet is totally new to her. And I was just telling her, you know, 6 million people have watched that video, and she's just blown away by it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is, it's, you have a lot of, there's a lot of outreach, there's a lot of ways to outreach, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to tune in. So, you know, just because you have the ability, you still have to have the talent or a hook or something special, you know? So yeah, that's cool. That's awesome about your mom. You said 92?
93.
93. God bless her. Oh man, it's still going strong.
And she still sings like an angel. She's got a great voice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. How about you, Rick? How are you keeping busy these days?
Other
than the pottery, outside of the pottery, I mean, are you?
My pottery. I'm a yoga nut, so I do yoga every day. The weather's great here. I've been biking probably now 10 miles a day too, so I feel better than I normally feel. I mean,
thank God Gary's wearing pants. Whew, that was close.
Yeah, because
that was close.
I put them on just for this. I haven't worn pants
girl.
in a week.
Yeah, so I'm keeping busy. You know, I stay in touch. You know, I talk to either Gary or Bill almost every day, and then some of my other, you know, buddies from. One thing this has done is, I'm sure we've all realized, it's connected us with old friends we haven't talked to in a long time. Old bandmates. Last night was the first night of Passover, so my entire family had a virtual Zoom Passover Seder dinner.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
Great. It was great. Cousins I haven't seen for years. And it's just, so there's, you know, as tough as this all is, maybe there's a blessing in that if we can kind of keep this spirit of community going and helping each other and reaching out to each other, you know, things, you know, maybe could be a little bit better, you know. And
I think that's an interesting note. You know, I was talking with my wife and some other people about it the other day, and you know, a lot of people are saying, and rightfully so, let's just get back to the way we were. Let's get back to normal. Let's get back to normal. It's not very often. In fact, this is one of the few times period ever that the whole world has taken pause, and not from a war and not from anything like that, but with a common enemy, with everybody facing outward as opposed to looking at each other with anger. It's one of the very, very few times that the world has had especially in this connected age, certainly the first time in the connected age, where we're looking out at something. And, you know, we were discussing it, not to get overly kumbaya, but I figure it works for the 60s flower power feel is, instead of going back to normal, why not take this opportunity to improve on some of these things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The old model is pretty much done. We need a new model. And we talk about that all the time. And, you know, we'll talk about that with our fans and, you know, in the chat rooms and stuff like that too, because, you know, we're people too, you know, we happen to play the music, but, you know, we have family, we have friends, you know, we're as vulnerable as anybody else. And you know, maybe we have the real opportunity to you know, to change some things. It would be neat. I mean, we had it in the 60s. I don't know how good we did, but.
Well, you were awfully effective the first time around. We'll see if we can't do it this time around. Before we let you go, first and foremost, thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. I know you've got pottery to get to, and Bella clearly needs more love at this point in time, Gary.
I think Gary ought to sing a chorus of the letter.
Oh,
with his guitar.
You're going to put Gary on the spot.
Well, I'll play along with him, but we'll be out of sync a little bit, but that doesn't matter.
I tell you what.
Okay, I don't have a guitar pick on me.
Oh, for good. Yeah, guitar player without a guitar pick.
Oh, here's one. I got one.
Well, I was going to say, there's not 30 on your desk there. Wow, very unique, very cool. Thank you. Bella's going to sing along?
Everybody.
Okay. Okay. I haven't sung in 2 weeks now. Okay.
Then you'll sound like Alex. You sound raspy.
Give me a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone. I'm going home. A baby just wrote me a letter. Well, she wrote me a letter, said she couldn't live without me no more. Listen, mister, can't you see I got to get back to my baby once more? Anyway, yeah, give me a ticket for an airplane. Anyway, that's all I'll do for now.
The check's in the mail, Gary.
Yeah.
Hey, Warren, how about this? I hear the train coming round the bend. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, you missed your call and you could have been a tribute artist.
We might be.
Yeah, right. You guys are fantastic. I really, really appreciate both of you taking the time, Gary, Rick, and Bella, for making some guest appearances there. I wish you and your families nothing but happiness and health during this time. So stay safe. Wash your hands, of course, friends.
Thank you. You too.
Absolutely. And, you know, I as I've asked other artists, I'll ask you the same. If we have need to, we'd love to reach back out to you and touch base and check in.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime. And all our friends on, you know, Flower Power Cruise Chat, all you guys, visit us on Facebook, come to our websites and stuff. And, you know, we're really accessible. You know, we're always around, especially now. We're not going anywhere. So.
We're accessible and we're bored.
Yeah, right. It's either a great or a horrible combination. Well, you guys are rock and roll, man. I appreciate you both.
See you 2021.
Yeah, right. To all of our watchers out there, thank you so much for tuning in for another All Access Pass from Home. I'm your virtual cruise host, Jason. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in English. Keep an eye on this channel for more content soon. See you later, everybody.
Peace out.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Jason.